in London. That doesn't happen very often, does it? Now, time for the debate. Will Greece get its money? That's the question on everyone's lips tonight as the international debt inspectors scrutinise the nation's books. Greece must make 11.5 billion euros worth of cuts over the next 2 years. And if it doesn't come up with credible plans to do this, it risks losing the next round of bailout money worth some 30 billion euros. Well, the EU Commission President Jose Manuel Barroso has jetted into Athens to take a look at the situation for himself. He and the Greek Prime Minister Antonis Samaras gave a joint press conference earlier on. Here's what they had to say.
We are doing everything possible in order to achieve the necessary recovery of the economy so that Greece can get back on track and achieve its objectives. We talked about increasing the number of privatizations and accelerating the mergers or discontinuation of public organizations. These are all specific measures in order to change the business climate in Greece.
The key word here is deliver. Deliver, deliver, deliver. The main issue is implementation to deliver results. To maintain the trust of European and international partners, the delays must end. Words are not enough. Actions are much more important.
Well, on top of that, behind the scenes, there have been some disgruntled EU officials telling journalists that Greece is still way off track when it comes to getting its finances in order. So what next for Greece? Will it be leaving the Eurozone anytime soon, or has it done enough to warrant fresh bailout funds, and can it get its economy back on track? Well, here to answer some of those questions for us tonight, Alessandro Giraudo. He's the chief economist at the organisation VL Tradition. Also here with us in the studio is Olivier Lecomte. He's a professor of finance at the École Centrale here in Paris. Joining us tonight from London, we've got a newcomer, Raoul Ruparel. He's the head of economic research at the think tank Open Europe. Great to have you with us. Also tonight with us in Athens, Nikos Vernikos. He's the head of the Greek Chamber of Commerce. Good evening to all and thanks for being with us. Now, I'll start with you, Nikos, if I may. We've got a lot of money that has to be found by the Greek government. How do they plan to make those savings?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Nikos Vernikos. Where will the savings come from?
The savings of whom? Of the Greek people?
11.5 billion euros over the next 2 years.
Okay. Yes, 11.5 billion euros are going to be cut with further austerity from the Greek people who asked the help of the Troika when we had 120% debt. The therapy that was imposed to us made the debt become 170% of the GDP. If everything is going well, it is going to be back in 120% in 2020. We are trying to deliver, and the new government is really trying hard. I am optimistic that almost the 11 billion euros are going to be found, but with a great sacrifice for the Greek people, who is really suffering because of a bad therapy. When Greeks asked the help of Europe, our debt was at the similar levels of today's Italian debt. Greece was the experiment for the Troika and the Eurozone. Can you imagine what would have happened today with Spain if we didn't have the experience of Greece? So we are ready to help Spain. Greece will continue with difficulties to make the reforms we have to make. There is no doubt that we have to make the reforms, but we have to be realistic. Greeks are in a war-like situation. People are committing suicide. People are dying from lack of medicine. In spite of that, the majority of the Greek people are going to help the government to make the cuts and achieve the 11 billion.
All right. Alessandro Giraudo.
Today.
All right, thank you, Nikos. Alessandro Giraudo, are you optimistic the Greeks can meet their obligations, considering that they've just scaled down economic growth? We've got a 7% slump in the economy this year. It's going to be very, very difficult to find that money.
It will be extremely difficult, because in reality we understand that something would have been possible considering a certain kind of level of growth. And we have Europe that is just sharply going down, and this is something that worries me. I think that we have in reality 2 points. The first one is the pure economic one. I think that Greece is a dead country, what a pity. And on the other side you have the, let's say, political component of Europe. Can we leave Greece out of Europe? So do we want to open a window in a submarine that is under the water? Probably no. This is the political point of view. And I think that, the only way is to probably to give a little bit more time to Greece, because I'm sure that they will not be able to save enough of the 11.5 billion, considering the economy that is really shrinking, not only in Greece, but also in Europe.
Olivier Lecomte.
Well, I will agree with Alessandro on the fact that we are in a very paradoxical situation where, at the same time, I think that the European Commission, what has said Barroso, for example, is quite right. I mean, there is a lack of implementation and delivery by the Greek government and the Greek institutions that haven't respected all the former commitments. And at the same time, the only possible weapon they have, the EC, the European Commission, have to force the Greeks to implement what they are supposed to implement, is to cut the further funding, which would be a nuclear weapon with effects back in Europe. Because if we let Greece down, it will sure that then it will put Spain and maybe Italy in a similar situation.
If we let Greece down, so that means if we don't put the money we're supposed to put...
Because
there are reports that they could run out of money as soon as the end of next month.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let me bring in... finish your point, sorry.
No, please.
All right, let me bring in Raoul Ruparel. I just want to see if you agree with what you've heard so far.
Well, yes, I definitely agree that the problem is implementation on the ground in Greece. I think they will reach a deal. They could come up with the cuts on paper and there will be some political agreement behind it. But ultimately, the problem is on the ground, in the institutions, in the regions, and they simply cannot make the cuts, and they're simply not willing to make the cuts at the moment. So although they may reach an agreement this time and kick the can slightly down the road again, when it comes to implementing this program, we'll be back in the same situation in a few months' time where the Troika will reassess how far Greece has gone, and it will not have gone far enough. So I think we'll see a situation of incremental cash flows going to Greece, just keeping its head above water. But the more Greece moves towards a primary surplus, and importantly, the more the Greek banks become recapitalised as this money goes into the Greek economy, the more attractive a Greek exit from the Eurozone might look, both to Greece and to the Eurozone partners.
Right, two very different views on that today, actually. The bank Citigroup says there's still a 90% chance that Greece could leave the Eurozone. And then we've also heard from Greek politician Evangelos Venizelos. He says that if Greece was to leave the Eurozone, it would be suicide for the Eurozone. What are your thoughts on that, Olivier?
Well, I think that wouldn't be good for the Eurozone, because, yes, if people would start to think that if Greece has left the Euro, then Spain can do the same. And Italy specifically would have a very strong interest in leaving the euro, because Italy has some very strong export and industrial basis, which Greece doesn't have, by the way. I don't think that Greece would benefit so much of leaving the euro, because the Greece exports amount only for about 10% of GDP, while imports amount for about 1/4 of GDP. It means that if Greece would have to pay with a devaluated currency its imports, then that would be a terrible shock on the Greek population and on the economy. But at the same time, the point is, we are helping Greece, and we are helping indirectly Greek banks, and at the same time, you have money coming out of Greece from individuals and from companies. So it's some kind of, never-ending help coming from the European institution towards Greece, and then the money leaving Greece the day after, because people don't trust in the future of Greece, even the Greeks themselves.
Mm-hmm. Alessandra, it seems that there's 4 options on the table for international lenders if Greece can't present a credible plan to make these cuts over the next 2 years. Either they're going to have to lend Greece more money, or they're going to have to lose money on the money they've already lent.
Right.
Otherwise, they're going to have to force Greece out of the Eurozone. Or, of course, the fourth is to insist on deeper and deeper cuts.
Right. In fact, I think that for the international investors, it is a position of lose-lose, not win-lose or win-win. So I guess then, there is an interest. Can you imagine, right now, the debt of Greece is trading in the region of 13% of the nominal value. So people have already lost something like a fat 80%, if not more. Can they afford to lose more? Sure, clearly. But, the point is that we need to stop this kind of bleeding, because we have right now, we have seen, and in my company we are reacting in the markets, quite a lot of money that is international real money leaving Europe, so going out of Europe, because, they don't have any more confidence. Mm-hmm. And at the end, if we want really to put one word for Greece and for Europe, it is confidence. I give you an example that we need really to keep in mind. The word credit comes from credo, that stands, it's Latin, that stands for I believe you. I think that we have lost a lot of credo in Europe, and the only way is maybe to share, what a pity, to share this kind of losses among all the components of Europe. And for the moment, clearly, Germany is saying, I want to put a break, because there was some engagement. Let's hope that, as my friend was saying, we will be able to find it is a compromise. It is a compromise. A solution through which Greece will take, on the paper, some kind of engagements. Enough to postpone the problems. And in the meantime, we need clearly, and this is a problem for Europe, to prop in, first, some more growth, second, to stabilize the markets. And probably today, we will probably speak after, Draghi as something totally new, I would say.
Mm. Nikos Vernikos, if I could bring you back in. I mean, we had a lot of turmoil earlier in the year following the election, of course, and the rise of the anti-austerity parties saying no to paying back these debts on these terms. Is there now, following the second election, the political will to really drive through this austerity?
The majority of the Greek people and the majority of the Greek parliament gave the power to the present government to continue the reforms. And the present government is going to deliver, because this is what the majority of the country wants, in spite of the hardship that the young and the working class are suffering. I personally believe that what is happening today in Europe and in Greece is the result of the effort the European people and the European governments are doing to survive for the first time in history in peace. Similar problems like the ones Greece and Europe have today have been solved in the past only with wars. So I am lucky, I feel I'm fortunate that I'm living in Europe in a period that we have 67 years of peace.
Right, but you can still live in Europe. You can still live in Europe and be outside the Eurozone. And listening to calls from Berlin increasingly over the past few months, that is still very much a possibility. It's not a given that Greece will stay in the Eurozone.
If for 2 years everybody is telling that Greece has to leave from the Eurozone or it's not good, what are you expecting from me as a company manager? Should I keep the money of my clients, of my employees in a Greek bank? From the moment that it is legal to move my money from a Greek bank to an Italian bank, to a British bank, to a French bank, to a German bank. How can you imagine what I'm going to say to my shareholders when everybody in Europe for 2 years, they say Greece have lived? You have to understand that the Eurozone is a family today. The Europeans fought and they had this currency. We are going to find solutions. If Greece is going to go outside of the Eurozone, other countries will follow. The debt that Italy has today is bigger than the debt Greece had when they asked the help of the European Union and the European Union of the IMF. Our problem is lack of leadership. All solutions, all therapies imposed to Greece were wrong therapies. Nobody predicted the results of the therapy, of the deficit of Greece. For almost 5 years now, we have continuous deficit, double the amount that it was supposed to be, and it was calculated by the technocrats. We have a wrong therapy, and in spite of that, we are going to continue fighting to deliver, as Mr. Barroso said. Greece gave the example. What would have happened without Greece, without the laboratory of Greece, where all these instruments that help today Italy and Spain have been formed? Can you imagine this?
What do you think? What do you think, Nikos? What do you think when you see what's happening with the Spanish? They're getting a 100 billion bailout that's going directly to their financial institutions instead of going to the government's balance sheets. And with that, of course, they're not going to have the same kind of scrutiny that the Greek government is getting right now. Is that fair?
It is unfair for Greece, but it is fair for the other Europeans and for Spain, because if they don't support the Spanish banking system, the Spanish people is going to take their money outside of Spain like the Greeks did. So that is the service that Greece offered. They noticed, the technocrats, what happened in Greece, and they don't want to repeat the same mistake with Spain.
All right.
So that's why I say there is no bad without good.
Let me just get a quick reaction from Olivier Leconte. You're shaking your head.
I think that was very right. That the key issue is to establish some credibility and some confidence for the future. And let's face it. There's only one solution if we want to keep Greece in the Eurozone. That is that the amount of Greek debt in the hand of the European institutions, about 85% of the Greek debt is today in the hands of European financial institutions, either the ECB or the financial
or German banks,
the European
banks,
Stability Fund, but public institutions. So that would be easy to say, okay, we abandon.
So they have to take, there has to be another restructuring, is that what you're saying?
No, not restructuring, just we abandon, for the public institutions just have to cut at least 50% or 60% of the remaining debt and abandon it.
But we've already
exactly as we've done it. We've done, with African countries and various countries. Let's face it. That's the only way for Greek to come back in the European family and to keep the euro as a currency.
All right, we're going to hold it there. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have the international headlines for you and the second part of our debate. Don't go away.